is Ami Daniel. Mr. Ami Daniel is also a good friend for like 10 years, I guess. But this is his first public appearance in a space conference because he's been shying away from us. He's been creating organizations since he was 16. He holds a BA in law and business, again, not a typical space entrepreneur. But he's making a lot of money from space analytics, counting ships, and more. So he founded Windward 2009, and now he's the CEO of a global leader in marine intelligence company, published in Forbes and everywhere. I mean, they are the best. So welcome, Ami, Daniel.
Thank you, Ofer. Oh, that's working.
Yeah.
I'm going to work on this. So thank you. Actually, it's very exciting to be here, just because when I was 18, I won, or I was awarded an award named after Ilan Ramon for the excellence in whatever social and stuff in Israel, and so that's very exciting for me. And I was also a student in Tel Aviv, so I attended conferences here. So again, that's double the excitement for me. And I want to build on what Agnieszka has said before, and it's a pleasure to see friends here like Ofer, and friends here like Ofer Lapid, Ofer Doron, and Massimo from Egeos. So it's I think we're a very tightly knit community. And I want to talk to you about the opportunity for what we call vertical AI. Has anybody in the crowd heard the word vertical AI? Okay, I hope I'm going to do a good job in explaining it. So we now live in a world of streaming information. Planet has 200 satellites. There's a company called Hawkeye 360 looking at recording broadband from space, 1 to 16 gigahertz, whatever you want. You see radar satellites. A company named ICEYE from Finland launched a radar satellite, 100 kilograms 2 weeks ago. Until recently, that was the hidden secret of the Israeli industry. We had radar satellite, which was weighing hundreds of kilograms versus a ton and a half. But how do we consume that data? So Agnieszka finished the presentation with come build on our API. They've built a data platform. The SkySats, originally bought by Google, that's what was their secret sauce was about. There was a data platform. You can consume the data. They would organize the data. They would say people don't want to consume images anymore. They want to consume labeled data and do something with it. But what we see, and that's kind of what you hinted at, is that many times analysts are left confused. I have a job to do. I'm an analyst. I have a job to do. I'm a trader. I'm a charterer. I trade energy. I look at stuff. Now you bring all that data to me, and how am I supposed to interact with that? How will I find 3 more hours a day to look at the gazillion images you're getting to me? Am I going to invest in developing that software? So vertical AI is exactly where that comes in. So there's an opportunity to bridge the gap between many industries and the ecosystem of data providers that we're seeing. That's a great ecosystem, and the end users. Because I think what we're seeing, that if we want to create a market, we need to bridge the gap to what's the business question of the user. How would they make more money? How would they save money? How are they measured? They're not measured at buying images. So I think on a global scale, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the biggest purchasers of imagery are governments, because they've been doing that, right? The National Geospatial Agency has been doing that. The US government has been doing that. Europe has been doing that. Maybe Israel has been doing that. But we all understand, if we want to take this space, pun intended, one step further, we need to expand into commercial industries, energy, transportation, finance, insurance, and so on and so forth. And that's what the term vertical AI is all about. Vertical AI is a term coined by a gentleman called Bradford Cross, and afterwards reaffirmed by a venture capital firm called Venrock in New York. And vertical AI is a thesis that says that in order to solve the business problems of the users, you have to go deep. You have to go deep and combine domain expertise with data science, with proprietary data, and own the full product cycle. These are basically the 4 ingredients of vertical AI. So you should create something that solves the day-to-day business problem of the user. This can be in marine, this can be in transportation, it can be in energy, it can be anywhere else. So we create together an ecosystem of data providers that launch satellites, and that's a wholly very complex business to launch satellites, to sustain them, to maintain them, to make that data accessible. But then you'll see, and I believe you'll see, companies who focus on specific verticals and build vertical-specific algorithms to bridge that gap. So a few examples of how we're seeing it. And our company is about 70 people strong, raised about 23 mil, and the only thing we do is vertical AI for marine. So we used, just one step before that. In some presentations, people talk about counting ships, counting cars. I think the most known use case of satellite data is counting cars outside of Walmart. If you would look at Walmart and you would see, and Orbital Insights use that as well, and you would see how many cars are parked outside of Walmart before Christmas, you would expect a full parking lot. But if you do this at, I don't know, Monday, 10 a.m., you would expect a free parking lot. Then you could benchmark that and understand what's the proxy of revenues of that specific Walmart branch. And then if you would take that across the US and count every branch and say A plus B plus C plus D, and then project that and combine that, you could understand what will be the revenues of Walmart. Has anybody heard that use case before? Okay, some of the people in the crowd. But we're saying something else. We're saying counting is not enough. Measurement is not enough. We need to take the next step step towards prediction. The goal is the crystal ball. You'll be able to predict risk, predict relationship, predict what's going to happen. Otherwise, a lot of people scale down the problem. If you look at shipping, then there's not that many ships around. There's 200,000 vessels in the world. And if you look at a specific port like Kuwait, at any given point in time, you have 30, 40, 50 vessels. And then the analyst, which remained confused before, would say, well, why do I need all this technology? I'll just count the ships. Give me the data, I'll count the ships. But we're all limited by our minds. And therefore, the question is, can we predict what's going to happen? Can we connect and unravel hidden relationships between vessels? The whole world of shipping is built in order to hide relationships between vessels. The shipping regime, the tax regime, what's called flags of convenience. Nobody knows who's the owner of 75% of the vessels in the world. That's a fact. Can we solve that with databases? No. People have been trying for 250 years. Why don't we try another way to solve that? So what we've seen is that combining domain expertise in data science and using graph theory to model how vessels behave, we can unravel hidden relationships between vessels. And in this case, it's two vessels transporting cargo in the middle of the ocean. You wouldn't see that in any database, and it's there's a very low chance that any generic image from space will catch that. You have to go deep. You also have to go deep to predict marine accidents. Has anybody heard of an accident between two vessels 2 weeks ago, between the Sanchi and the CF Crystal? Yes, right, there's an oil spill in the South China Sea. So it's an Iranian national tanker company vessel collided with another bulk carrier, and 32 people lost their lives in a horrible accident off the South China Sea. And the question is, could we predict that? Could we understand which vessels are more prone for accidents? Not only to sell that to insurers, but to reduce the risk. Could we look at another way to measure risk, an objective way, to encourage loss prevention? So a ship owner could say, listen, I trained my staff, we're all good, man. Really, I've done my job. But what if you could measure that? Has he trained these people? Did the risk go down? What will happen next year? So using AI and domain expertise, we're already able to predict next year's accidents for vessels and next year's accidents for collisions, for oil spills, and that already works with Lloyd's of London. But now let's go to the big challenge. So everybody talks about, there was a Wall Street Journal video published last week, or this week actually, called The Steel Box, how the invention of the container changed the world. So everybody says figures like 90% of the world's trade is transported by seas, right, Ofer? That's what we grew up as naval officers with that slide. But do we understand global supply chain? What does the weather, bad weather in India do to the trade in Japan? What will that do to my shipment? How can we connect and predict the butterfly effect if we go beyond data, if we go beyond what we know today, if we model the world as a network of entities interconnecting, interfacing every day, we could see what will happen tomorrow, next week, next month, and expand our horizon. These are very exciting times. Ofer, thank you very much for inviting me. We're just getting started, and I think next space, a new space, is going to change the world. Thank you very much, everybody.